the executive director of UNICEF, briefing the UN Security Council on the situation in Sudan, said an estimated 12.1 million women and girls, and increasingly men and boys, are at risk of sexual violence. This is, and of course, 80% increase from the previous year. Alamadi Baro again has more details of that in this report.
Sexual violence is used as a weapon in Sudan's conflict, which have reportedly put millions of children at risk. The impact of this violence and the fear of falling victim to it is pushing women and girls to leave their homes and families, only to face further dangers. UNICEF reports that girls often end up in informal displacement sites with scarce resources, where the risk of sexual violence is high. Of the reported child rape survivors, 66% are girls. Meanwhile, boys are also facing their own difficulties, with deep-seated stigma. Reporting sexual assaults present its challenges, making it harder to seek help and access services. Catherine Russell, the executive director of UNICEF, while briefing the UN Security Council, stated that the agency estimates that nearly two-thirds of Sudan's total population will require humanitarian assistance this year, with its economic and social service system and infrastructure in near collapse.
With its economy and social services system and infrastructure in near collapse and no end to the conflict in sight, we estimate that nearly two-thirds of Sudan's total population, more than 30 million people, will require humanitarian assistance this year. Famine is occurring in hotspots in at least 5 locations in Sudan, with an estimated 1.3 million children under 5 living in these areas. Over 3 million children under 5 are at imminent risk of deadly disease outbreaks, including cholera, malaria, and dengue, due to the failing health system. 16.5 million school-aged children, nearly an entire generation, are out of school. This is not just a crisis, it's a polycrisis affecting every sector, from health and nutrition to water, education, and protection.
UNICEF boss further explains that between June and December 2024, more than 900 incidents of grave violations against children were reported, with a staggering 80% involving the killing and maiming of children.
UNICEF continues to receive alarming reports of grave violations against children trapped in this conflict, including their recruitment and use by armed groups. Between June and December 2024, more than 900 incidents of grave violations against children were reported, with a staggering 80% involving the killing and maiming of children, primarily in Darfur, Khartoum, and Al Jazeera states. Sadly, we know these numbers are just a fraction of the reality.
The dire situation is exacerbated by the collapse of infrastructure, with 16.5 million school-aged children out of school and nearly an entire generation at risk amid the adverse effects of the ongoing conflict. As the situation deteriorates, the UN Children Agency, UNICEF, is working with partners to establish safe spaces that provide gender-based violence services for survivors. The agency is also training frontline workers, including social workers and psychologists, to provide community-based services across Sudan, as well as address harmful social norms and practices. Reporting for Eyeafrica News,